I've been here at TexasSt now for 20 years, and which is crazy for me to think that I've been here 20 years. And one of my biggest things over the last few years has been the visual training. And I really was wanting to figure out how to get our kids seeing more pitches with the limited amount of time we have. And so when I started looking at different programs and different ways to do this and talking to different people about it, I started, just searching the internet and seeing what I could find out there. And that's when I came across GameSense, and I saw it only as a baseball thing first. And so that's when I got a hold of Peter, and I was like, okay, do you have something, on the softball side? And Peter sent me some things and said, yeah, we do. So that's kind of how this came about. But that was my biggest thing, was trying to find something just to get our kids some visual training. I really didn't, when I started searching, I wasn't looking for actual pitches. So this kind of was even better than I thought it was going to be to start with.
One of the things we were hoping to talk about was to kind of get that pitcher's view, so we're talking about the pitch recognition and some tips and kind of, the from the other side of the circle, what would you say to hitters about pitch recognition? And that can be to Ricci and Kat.
I think ideally a pitcher's trying to throw all of their pitches the same way. We're not trying to learn 5 different ways to throw pitches. So our goal is to make them look all as similar as possible, or identical as possible as you can. So I think if you're a hitter and you're able to watch other pitchers, even if it's not someone you're facing immediately right there, but be able to see how maybe they tip off something, then when you're actually in game or in a situation in the dugout or whatnot, you can then look at pitchers and see what they're doing to tip something off, whether it's where their glove's at or how they're gripping the ball or on the backswing, if it's shorter or longer, those kind of things. So I think, there are things pitchers do subconsciously. And I think as a hitter, obviously, if you're trained to start trying to look for those things, then obviously you'll be able to hopefully identify pitches, and the idea is to have more success, but at least know what's coming so you're a little more prepared.
I think Kat made a good point. You're, as a pitcher, you're trying to not sell your pitches. You're trying to throw the same pitches with, very little variations. And, maybe it is a lockdown knee, but it's not so different than your other pitches to where you tip it off to the batter. Because, when, excuse me, when I was coaching, I would designate, 2 players a game to say, hey, try and pick these pitches. And when I was in college, that's what my role was, because I was a pitcher and a hitter. I think I tried to do that because I think it made me a better hitter. So I think, from a pitcher's perspective, yes, there's so many different ways to throw pitches. And it's like, on a screwball, you step out, or on a curveball, you step over the power line. There's so many different instructors teaching different things, but I would say the better pitchers are kind of honing in their mechanics and not showing so many drastic variations, if you will.
Ricci, what kind of conversations do you have then with hitters in the dugout? I know that one of the things that we've gotten from some of the coaches with that, I was just talking with Chris Malveaux at Mizzou, who, like you, have been using the program for a while, and he said actually that he thought the biggest contribution was just kind of the dugout talk. You had people talking about, coming back from an at bat, hopefully about after rounding the bases, but, coming back and kind of being able to talk about. Do you see any differences there?
Right. Well, what I was thinking was, when I was listening to these guys talk a little bit, is it kind of gets your hitters thinking about cheating the system a little bit, is what I call it. Is, it gives us an advantage if you can cheat the system. If you can get them talking about what the pitcher's doing, I call it cheating the system, because you can figure out how to pick something before you have to actually swing the bat. We don't have very long to decide whether we want to swing the bat or not. So any little thing we can do to help cheat the system can only help us. So definitely any dugout talk you can get going that would help cheat the system for the hitter can only make us better hitters, in my opinion.
Well, I really like to hear that, because sometimes people really pigeonhole like pitch recognition as kind of drawing more walks. And that can be an outcome, but that's not your goal. You're trying to get a
Right.
good pitch to hit.
Right. And I think that's kind of what's changed our mentality a little bit. I think we've been known more for getting more walks in my hitting system and my hitting philosophy. That's one of the things that I wanted to change a little bit is, we are trying to draw some walks if we can, but, let's go ahead and swing the bats if we get the opportunity. And I just felt like this year we were doing a little bit better job with that, as we were swinging the bats with a little bit more authority. And I think that just comes from being a little bit more confident when you get in the box. We had a player that was leading the Sun Belt in home runs, which we've never really been in that spot. And so I do think our power numbers were already increasing. And I think some of that is credited to this. I just think they were more confident swinging the bat this year already, just because of cheating the system. And again, that's just the term I use for it, is that I just think it gives you more confidence when you can figure out a little bit, of an advantage of what that pitcher might be getting ready to throw.
Kat, do you really count a rise ball among your weapons there? And what do you do when somebody spits on that? You get one of those. Oh, you have them perfectly set up, and they they don't bite. Now what?
Yes, the rise ball is definitely one of my tools. It was my best pitch growing up until I got to college, so it is in my tool belt. And you know what? You don't usually, if they bite at the rise ball, great, but you should be setting up 2 pitches ahead if you're executing correctly and hitting spots and whatnot. So while that rise ball might be the pitch that you might get them to chase, or you might be hoping they get to chase, you're really planning for the pitch after that and where that's going to be spotted. So it's great when you throw a great rise ball and they swing, but at the same time, I've been seen plenty where I throw it in a great spot and I'm just like, how'd you not swing at that? But at the same time, you have more weapons in your belt, and that's why no pitcher is like a one-pitch pitcher, because you can't live on just the rise ball, obviously, because it's out of the zone most of the time. But it's just, as a pitcher, it's one of those, it's a game in setting up pitches and how you're calling them and how you're throwing them, and obviously execution is the key to that.
All right, and what kind of pitch? What might you be setting that up with? Are you trying to get them? Maybe you throw kind of a drop from this with the same kind of release angle, but it's going to, with the idea they would take that, or say I do swing at the rise, but I'm going to be determined not to the next time. What are you trying to set up?
Well, there's never an idea in my mind that they're going to take. My thought process is always trying to make them swing. But I mean, I think it depends on what a pitcher's repertoire is. If you have a drop, then yes, obviously, if you go up and in, either down and in or down and out are very good spots. But at the same time, you come up at somebody's face, you just made the pitch look a lot faster than it really is. And you can go with an off-speed pitch or something else. So there's a number of ways you can combat hitters and set up pitches. But, a lot of times you don't want to go 2 rise balls in a row. That's where you see if they take it, they're probably going to be on time the next time, or if they swung at the first one, they usually hold back on the second one. You'll have some that just aren't as disciplined and chase, but usually you're just setting that up to speed things up in order to go attack them in another place.
Have you ever had an opponent at whatever level it was, and the kind of advice that you might give to then pitchers on a team that you were working with, if there seems to be that hitter that somehow has your number, it's almost like they know that they just seem to know that what pitch is coming, and they don't chase, and then they're on something that is in the zone. What's your communication on somebody like that?
Well, I think anytime a pitcher or a hitter has a pitcher's number, you just have to pitch a little more carefully. And sometimes that's where we take the philosophy that we may, if there's a base open, pitch around them. But at the same time, you're just trying not to get beat on the same pitch every at bat against that hitter. Very rarely are they on your inside and your outside, or your hard stuff and your off speed stuff both. So it's trying to figure out how to set those up and how to place those. You don't always have to throw a strike. You can throw those for a ball and throw something else for a strike that's not your normal strike pitch in order to kind of fool them. So it's a matter of just staying mentally tough and being able to kind of extend the plate. And if you have to and tip your hat and put them on, you do. But otherwise attack them in a way that isn't necessarily your typical pitch selection.
So is it then fair to say that kind of selective hitter, or that hitter with the good eye, might be able to kind of take away, 1 or 2 or 3 of the bullets in your belt and make you focus on something, or maybe something you don't consider to be your best pitch, because you have to get that past them? I'm just looking at that kind of balance there.
It can. I think it depends again on how consistent you are with what is in your tool belt. Ideally, I think we'd all like to say we'd love our pitchers to be able to throw every pitch they throw for a strike and then not for a strike, but sometimes that's not the case. So yeah, can a selective hitter, if you're not able to do that, force you to maybe throw an off-speed pitch that's not a strike pitch for you? You might have to, yes. Or you may end up just walking them because that's what we're having to try to throw in those situations. So they can alter your rhythm and the way you're attacking hitters to a certain degree. And I think, again, it depends on the elite level you're talking about of your pitchers.
Ricci, we talked a little bit, and when we were having too much fun at one point designing all these crazy drills to do, and you say you actually done some of those. Did you get a chance to work at all with the pitchers standing in against, your own hitter standing in against your own pitchers and trying to call yes, no, those sort of things we talked about?
Yeah, we did a few of those things. We did it actually with our pitchers doing it, and then we did it with our two pitching coaches, because I was lucky enough, to have in the fall both cats, throwing, and then I also had Paige McDuffie from UCLA. I had both of them, on our pitching staff working. So, they were also able to stand in and do it without a ball, and our hitters trying to figure out what they were throwing. And to be honest, when we started, Peter, I was shocked at how little some of our kids understood the pitching mechanics of what happens when the pitcher's throwing their pitches. And so it was interesting to see the growth from when we started to when we finished. And we started with some of our own kids doing it with just one or two pitches. And then our own pitchers throwing all their pitches, or my pitchers on my pitching staff, with Kat and Paige both throwing a mixture of pitches to them without a ball, and them having to guess by the time we were done. Because by the time you get done with the fall, you're indoors a lot. And so, those drills were really effective for them, especially when we were in our indoor cages, because you didn't need much space to do those. So it was interesting to kind of be in my own cage working and hear my two pitching coaches talking them through, no, that wouldn't go to that side of the plate. And no, you're on the wrong side of the plate. And, no, my hand is going the opposite direction than that ball would go. So it was kind of a fun drill to listen to them, the actual pitching coaches teaching the hitters, what the mechanics of a pitch would do also. So yeah, it was fun to put some of those drills into actual practice every day and watch our hitters grow without balls being thrown at them even.
I haven't heard anybody actually doing that, just like you said, the idea of, because it would really challenge the hitters, with what you're thinking here, and say, this drill, there's going to be no ball. You're doing pitch recognition, and there's no ball. You're
right.
Having to recognize from those things that happened before the ball. After the ball comes out, your eyes take over. You've got well-trained eyes. We're hunter animals. If something's coming at us, we're going to track it. So you kind of don't have to train the tracking. But this idea of picking that information without even a ball in the hand, I'm going to steal that one if you don't mind.
No, it was great. And Kat could probably talk a little bit more about it than I can, because again, I was busy with a ball in my hand, and so she was the one doing it without the ball, and it was interesting just to hear the conversations going on.
Yeah, it was a good drill. Some of them don't realize that when you go to the left side, the pitch that's coming in at them is no longer a screwball, it's now a curveball. So Coach McDuffie and I are both left-handed, and we throw curveballs. They'd be like, screwball. We're like, no. And then that's when we're like, you have to look at what the hand's doing, not what side of the plate it's on. And then the other part was just kind of, we started with our own mechanics, which obviously both of us are pretty sound with, but then every now and then I would start leaning, like if, you get a pitcher who leans to make sure her curveball gets out there, I'd start leaning my shoulders back and be like, did you guys call curveball because you saw my shoulders or my hand? Because you should have seen my shoulders first, which should have tipped you off right away. Or screwball, if you step up like way out, that kind of thing. So we kind of started changing mechanics just a little bit to see if they were able to pick things up earlier as opposed to just watching our hand. But then the other fun part is trying the minor things. My drop and my change when I throw it without a ball look similar, but there's key elements that I could point out that's okay, this is what tells you it's a drop and this is what tells you it's a change. And it might be thumb position, but for them to be able then to look at that, because that's obviously the release point where they should be focusing anyways. So it was definitely a it was a challenge for them at first. By the end, I think they got pretty good. Every now and then they'd be like, oh, you slowed down your arm. Oh yeah. I'm like, those are things you need to look for every day. So it was definitely a fun thing. And I think from a pitcher's perspective, getting to explain to the hitters what like our hand, and they don't know the mechanics of pitching really, because most of them weren't pitchers. And so to talk them kind of what our wrist snap and our, wrist positions are supposed to be doing, it gives them just a little bit more knowledge to take to the plate with them.
In terms of the drill, obviously your hitters are more elite than say, a D2 or D3 school that doesn't have some of them. Yes, I totally. Okay. There's awesome D2, D3 schools. I get that. But I'm talking about like the level of hitter that you guys have versus another school that doesn't have the level of hitters that you have. So in terms of like this drill specifically, what's the confidence level, when you first started this cat, how was their confidence level like? It's a very, very hard drill for them to do. Were they challenged by it? Were they not confident? Do you think, this is a drill for the elite level teams, or is this a drill do you think you can implement, after you've been doing the GameSense software a while? Like what are your thoughts?
I think, we implemented it probably 2 or 3 weeks after they had been doing GameSense, I think. And honestly, because there's not a ball and you're not having to have like an actual outcome of hitting or tracking the ball away and to say yes or no and be wrong, I don't think it affected confidence levels so much. A couple of them would get frustrated because they would swear that they were correct on like the pitch choice that they had, and you tell them no and they're like, no way. And it's just, but as they got, I think more than anything, they started to take it as a challenge, because we would try to, with some of our better hitters, we would try to not at all lean or whatever, and obviously force them to pick it up sooner. And it just became a challenge for them. And even the ones that struggled early, like every time we had to do this, they would get into like, okay, I'm going to be better today. I'm going to figure this out today. And then you saw them, when it wasn't their turn, still standing like they were standing in, watching behind whoever's turn it was in order to get more reps to make sure that when they got up there, they were reading it right. So I think they kind of stepped up to the challenge and not so much got like less confidence with it, simply because you don't have the outcome factor. I mean, really, you only fail if you say the wrong word, the wrong pitch, and that's okay because we were explaining how to do it next time. And so the quote unquote like heaviness of being wrong is not as much as if you were swinging and missing or seeing a pitch and completely blowing it after the pitch has crossed the plate.
Sure. It seems so obvious. You would say, why haven't people been doing this? Kind of like Courtney said, why wouldn't you start that right from the beginning? And it's like, okay, we're in practice. You got to hit every ball. You have to hit every ball. It's like, well, now hold it. Sometimes let's do that without a ball.
Well, especially when it's raining and you just are limited on space. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it was tough at first, and they were frustrated a little bit at first, but they're frustrated hitting at first too. So, and probably later they're still frustrated hitting. So this is probably less frustrating because they're not actually hitting it. And they got, most of them got good at it.
Several in there at the same time. So now they start jostling, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to give you a pitch. If it's a drop ball, hit it. It's the rise or whatever cat you might work off of that when you say lay off, and you got 3 or 4 of them standing there, and 3 of them take and 1 of them gives the sign, and you say, well, how'd you know that was
right? You can make it a pretty good challenge, which is what we started doing with it. Is you can challenge the kids that are ready to be challenged, and you cannot the ones that aren't. I mean, you can control it, so that's the good part about it. Let me add to that, Drew, just for a second, just so you guys know, it helped our pitchers when they did it too. I mean, I was shocked that the pitchers really enjoyed doing it too, the couple of times they got to do it. When they threw it into the screen and our pitchers and our hitters kind of stood the other direction where they didn't really swing, or I don't remember if we had them swing or not swing, but where they tried to pick the pitch and the pitchers only threw it a couple of feet. When we did that drill, that actually helped our pitchers too, because the pitchers were like, yeah, no, I didn't throw that right. So you shouldn't have got that right. And so it made our pitchers focus on doing the drill right, actually, and throwing their mechanics correctly too. Just so you guys know that too. I don't think our pitchers did a great job when they did it air dry without a ball, but when they did it from the 3 feet away, I do think that drill helped our pitchers have to do their mechanics correctly too, because they could tell when they didn't do it right. And then they would tell our hitters, no, that wasn't your fault, that was our fault. So I think both sides got some things out of the drills also.
It's great if the pitchers can benefit you. I mean, people say, well, how's that help pitchers? Well, what pitcher minds an extra half run a game, right?
Right, exactly.
I was wondering, actually, Ricci, if you could speak on, your teams have limited budgets. So why was this your priority to focus on for your team? I know you talked about cheating the system a little, but could you elaborate on that a bit, please?
Yeah, again, that's why when I got into this, I was like, I don't have a whole lot of money to spend on this. So what's the best way to get some actual vision, reaction training? Yeah, I don't know what the best way to call it, what to even call it. And when I started kind of researching it more, because I hear people kind of go about it different ways. Is it reaction training? Is it visual training? What is the actual training we're looking for? And so I wasn't really sure what I was even looking for, but I knew I needed a good price. That I did know. And so, when you start talking 22, 23 players on a team, that was probably one of the things that I knew was going to be the hardest thing. So I started when I started this, I was looking for something that we were probably going to have to implement ourselves, to be honest. And so when I came across this and I started talking about, okay, what is this going to cost me? I was shocked that it was cheap enough for us to do at this price, and everybody could actually do it on their own device, that we didn't have to go purchase something that we were going to have them come in and do on our computers, or have something set up for them to have to come in and do on, only a school computer or something like that. So for them to be able to do it, on their own tablets or their own phones, I think was a selling factor to me, at the cost that we got it at. I think that was the biggest thing, was that it's a very convenient program for them to be able to do wherever, whenever. And not only is it cost effective, but I felt like there was a lot of value out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's super. You'd mentioned some of the drills, and you'd had a chance to do that and have them with the game sense. And you'd mentioned this one hitter then who had kind of a breakthrough in the power category. Were you seeing any of that ahead of time, either just with the confidence she expressed, or maybe actually how she would do at Cat's drill or some of these other drills, or on the game sense scores or anything like that? That kind of let you know, okay, maybe this person's starting to put two and two together?
Yeah, she was one of those kids that at this thing, we talked about this early on, how some of these kids that were either addicted to it or they weren't. And she was one of those that sometimes I would see that she would be doing it at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was not really the time you want them doing it. But you could tell she was really putting the time and effort into making her game better in all aspects, but she really, you could tell, was diligent about what she was doing. She wasn't just doing it because we were making her do it. She was getting out of it what she wanted to get out of it. And so she was one that from the get-go as a freshman, we thought she just needed confidence in what she was doing. She's a big left-handed kid that I knew was going to someday have a lot of potential. She just needed confidence. And I think that this is one of the programs that has just helped her immensely. So, she doesn't get cheated when she swings the bat. I just think that she's just needed to see more pitches. And this was one of the tools that's been able to help her do that. So, she already had 8 home runs in our 23 ball games. So, and on top of that, I don't even know how many walks she had, because, people were starting to walk her quite a bit.
Well, and you mentioned the left-handed hitting, and we've got Kat as a left-handed pitcher. So obviously the toughest matchup for hitters is lefty-lefty. That's what they're going to see the least. So, does it help at all that several of the pitchers, most of the pitchers on the game, since they're flipped? So even if they're a right-handed naturally, you have that left-handed view.
Oh, I think that's one of the best things about the program, is that you can take any pitcher and you can make them right-handed or left-handed. So you can get as many reps as you want either way. So the left-handed hitter has no excuse now to not get reps from a left-handed pitcher at any time. In my program, both the pitching coaches on my staff are both left-handed, so there's never been that excuse. But I do think that's one of the best things about this program, is that you can take any pitcher and make them right-handed or left-handed, so you get both views every single day if you want.
Excellent. Well, then we don't have to hold you guys too long, and we really appreciate you taking the time with that for yet another Zoom meeting.
No problem. Thank you. Obviously, you can tell we like the tool and we appreciate it. So thanks for making it affordable for us.